I thought I'd found the love of my life, but it was all a lie that cost me everything: my home, my savings, my trust. If you've ever been blindsided by someone you loved, please like this video or leave a comment so I know I'm not alone. It was the summer of 2022, and I was 32, living in a cozy apartment in Portland's Pearl District. My life wasn't glamorous, but it was mine, and I loved it. I worked as a graphic designer for a small creative agency called Spark Vibe, tucked in a brick building with ivy creeping up the walls. My mornings started at Brewed Awakening, a cafe down the street where I'd sip oat milk lattes and sketch logo ideas on napkins. My evenings were quiet reading novels, binge-watching indie films, or chatting with my best friend, Nora, over cheap wine. I wasn't looking for love. My 20s had been a battlefield of bad dates and one gut-wrenching breakup when I found my ex, Matt, still swiping on Tinder after 2 years together. I'd sworn off romance, content with my career, my art, my little world. But the universe, it seems, had other plans. His name was Lucas, and he walked into Brewed Awakening one rainy July morning, shaking water off his leather jacket. He was 35, a freelance photographer with tousled dark hair, hazel eyes, and a smile that felt like sunlight breaking through Portland's gray clouds. I was reading The Night Circus, my copy worn from too many rereads, when he leaned over and said, "That's my favorite book." His voice was warm, like he'd known me forever. We talked for hours about magic and stories, the best food trucks in town, the way rain made Portland feel alive. By the time he asked for my number, my cheeks hurt from smiling. It felt like fate, like the stars had aligned just for us. Lucas swept me off my feet faster than I thought possible. He'd text me every morning, usually a photo of the sunrise from a shoot, with a caption like, "Wish you were here." We'd meet at food trucks, splitting fish tacos and laughing over his terrible puns. He told me about his childhood in a small Oregon town, his dad's old camera that sparked his passion, and his dream to travel the world, capturing moments that mattered. I opened up too, sharing stories of my chaotic family, 3 siblings, endless arguments, and love that showed up in homemade meals. I told him about my art, how designing felt like breathing, and my fear of trusting someone again. He listened, really listened. His eyes locked on mine, and I felt seen in a way I hadn't since I was a kid dreaming of bigger things. By September, we were inseparable. He'd spend weekends at my apartment, cooking spaghetti while I blasted Fleetwood Mac. We'd hike in the Columbia River Gorge, his camera clicking as he captured me twirling in front of waterfalls, my hair wild in the wind. I started imagining a future, a house with a big window for his photography, a garden where I could sketch under fairy lights. I wasn't just falling in love, I was building a life in my head, brick by brick, with Lucas as the foundation. My friends noticed the change. Nora said I was glowing, teasing me about wedding bells. Even my coworkers commented on my smile, though I'd blush and wave it off. For the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. But there were cracks, tiny at first, like hairlines in glass. Lucas was vague about his finances, always dodging when I asked about his work. He'd say freelancing was feast or famine, and I believed him. I'd cover dinner at our favorite ramen spot or spot him $50 for gas, thinking it was no big deal. He was always so grateful, promising to pay me back when the next gig lands. I didn't mind. I wanted to support his dreams. But the amounts grew. He needed $500 for a new lens, then $1,000 for a client deposit he swore was refundable. I dipped into my savings money I'd scraped together for a down payment on a house, telling myself it was what couples do. I ignored the voice in my head whispering, "This doesn't add up." Other signs crept in. He'd get cagey about his phone, flipping it face down when we were together. Once, a text from Claire popped up, and he brushed it off as a client. He'd vanish for hours, saying he was on a shoot, but his Instagram stayed quiet, no new photos, just recycled shots from months ago. I'd lie awake in my apartment, the city's hum outside my window, my mind racing. Was I paranoid I'd been burned before, and the scars made me question everything? I'd stare at the ceiling, replaying his excuses, wondering if I was sabotaging something good. But my gut wouldn't shut up. And deep down, I knew something was wrong. I tried to talk to him about it, casually at first. Over coffee one morning, I asked about his shoots, hoping he'd open up. He deflected, saying he was swamped and didn't want to bore me. I pushed a little, asking about Claire, and he laughed it off, saying she was just a contact from a gallery. His charm was disarming, but it didn't ease the knot in my stomach. I started noticing other things, how he'd always have an excuse to leave early, how he never invited me to his place, saying it was a mess. I wanted to believe him, but the doubts kept piling up, heavy as the rain that never stopped in Portland. The truth hit me like a freight train one cold December evening. Lucas was in my shower, his laptop open on my coffee table. I wasn't snooping, I just needed to check my email for a work deadline. But a chat window was open, and a message from Claire stared back at me. "Miss you, babe." My heart stopped. I scrolled, my hands trembling, and found months of messages flirty, intimate, full of pet names and promises to meet up. There were others too, names like Sarah, Emma, all with the same tone. Some were in different cities, suggesting he was juggling multiple lives. The dates overlapped with our entire relationship. I felt like I'd been punched, the air sucked out of my lungs. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was betrayal, calculated and cruel. When he stepped out of the bathroom, towel around his waist, I was sitting on the couch, his laptop still open. "Who's Claire?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. His face went pale, then hardened. He tried to spin it, said she was an old friend, that I was reading too much into it. But I wasn't backing down. I showed him the messages, my voice shaking with anger and hurt. He got defensive, raising his voice. "You're too clingy." Okay, I needed space. The word clingy cut like a blade. I'd given him my heart, my time, my money, and he was turning it on me. I told him to get out. He grabbed his bag, muttering something about me being dramatic, and slammed the door. The silence that followed was deafening. The days after were a haze. My apartment, once my sanctuary, felt like a graveyard of memories. The couch where we'd cuddled, the kitchen where he'd burned toast trying to impress me. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every corner held a ghost of him. But the real devastation came when I checked my bank account. I'd lent Lucas over $12,000 over 6 months, $500 here, $1,000 there, all for his career. It was most of my savings, money I'd saved for a house, a dream I'd held since I was 25. I called him, texted him, but he'd blocked me on everything. I went to his apartment, a rundown place he'd always avoided showing me, and the landlord said he'd moved out weeks ago, leaving no forwarding address. He'd lied about everything: his home, his life, maybe even his love. I was left with nothing but a hollowed-out heart and an empty bank account. I spiraled. I'd sit on my couch, a bottle of wine in hand, replaying every moment. How had I missed the signs? I'd trusted him, let him into my world, and he'd played me like a fool. My friends tried to help. Nora came over with takeout, letting me cry on her shoulder. But I felt ashamed. I couldn't tell my coworkers. The humiliation was too raw. My designs at work suffered. My lines were shaky, my colors dull. My boss, Sarah, pulled me aside, her voice gentle but firm. "You're not yourself," she said. I mumbled an excuse about stress, but inside, I was screaming. I'd lost everything: my savings, my confidence, the future I'd built in my head, all because I believed in a love that wasn't real. The lowest point came in January. I was scrolling through Instagram, numb, when I saw Lucas's post. He was in Seattle, posing with a new camera, grinning like nothing had happened. The caption read, "New city, new vibes." That camera sleek, professional, looked like it cost a fortune. My fortune. Rage burned through the sadness, sharp and hot. He didn't get to walk away, living his life while I drowned in the wreckage. I wanted to scream, to call him out, to make him hurt like I did. But confronting him would only give him power. Let him twist the story again. I needed something smarter, something that would hit him where it hurt without dragging me down with him. That's when I started planning my revenge. Lucas's photography career was his pride, but I knew it was fragile. He relied on Portland's tight-knit creative scene, where reputation was everything. I'd met his clients through him, people he'd name-dropped to seem important. There was Elena, a gallery owner who'd bought his prints, and Raj, a magazine editor who'd hired him for a feature. I had my own network too, built over years of designing for local businesses. I realized I had something Lucas didn't trust. I started small, careful not to overplay my hand. I emailed Elena, saying I'd worked with Lucas and heard he'd moved on suddenly, leaving projects unfinished. It wasn't a lie, just a nudge to get her talking. She replied, asking for details, and I shared enough to plant doubt without sounding bitter. I did the same with Raj, mentioning Lucas's unreliable communication during our collaboration. Word spread like wildfire. Portland's creative community is small. One whisper can ruin you. By the end of the month, I heard through a friend that Lucas was losing gigs, his name tainted by flakiness. But I wanted more. I wanted him to know it was me, without ever saying it. Lucas had been hyping a big gallery show in Seattle for months, a career-defining moment. I knew the curator, Maya, through a mutual friend from Spark Vibe. I sent her an anonymous tip from a burner email, hinting at Lucas's financial troubles and suggesting he might not deliver on promised prints. I attached screenshots of his unpaid debts to me texts where he'd promised to pay me back. Scrubbed of my name, but clearly his. Maya canceled his show, citing scheduling conflicts. His Instagram posts turned vague, ranting about setbacks and haters. His confidence was cracking, and I felt a quiet thrill knowing I'd done that. The final piece fell into place in March. I'd been rebuilding my life, taking on freelance design work to claw back my savings. I landed a gig designing a website for a local arts festival, a big deal that put me in touch with their hiring team. They needed a photographer, and Lucas applied, not knowing I was involved. I didn't sabotage him outright, that wasn't my style. Instead, I recommended a friend, Amara, a talented photographer who deserved the chance. Amara got the job, and Lucas didn't. I heard he was furious, blaming bad luck and politics. I smiled to myself, knowing it wasn't luck. It was me, quietly pulling strings, letting his own actions bury him. I never got my money back, and maybe I never will. But I got something better. My strength. Lucas took my savings, my trust, my dreams, but he didn't take me. I channeled my pain into action, not destruction. I'm back to designing, sketching logos that make clients smile. I'm back to coffee shop mornings, the smell of espresso grounding me. I'm even dreaming of that house again, with a garden where I can sit and draw. Lucas is out there, chasing his next mark. But he's not my problem anymore. I've accepted the hurt, the loss, and the lesson. Love can blind you, but it can also teach you to see yourself clearly. Sometimes, I think about what I could have done differently. Maybe I should have asked harder questions, trusted my gut sooner. But I don't regret my revenge. It wasn't about hurting him. It was about reclaiming my worth. I'm not the naive girl who fell for his lies. I'm stronger, wiser, and I know now that love, real love, doesn't drain you. It builds you up. I'm not there yet, but I'm open to trying again, with my eyes wide open this time. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Leave a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this. Maybe you've got a story of betrayal, redemption, or finding your strength. Share it. I'd love to hear it. Until next time, keep your heart open, but your eyes wider.